Jason Hall, if you're ready to rock, the floor is yours, my friend.
All right, so this is an event equipment rental company. Really simple model here. Oops. They have a whole bunch of equipment that they rent out. They set it up for an event and they take down. They got chairs, tables, uh, huge tents. That's most of their bread and butter. Um, they've also got a retail store where they sell event related, party related, holiday related items such as cups, plates, napkins, etc., etc. Business Basics has been operating for over 25 years. The current seller has owned it for the last 15 years, and he was an employee before buying. He's in his late 40s, early 50s, so we're not seeing that urgency that you would with somebody who's in their 60s and ready to retire. Um, but they're the market leader in their geographical area for this stuff. They are known as the go-to company. Um, this business is based out of Alaska, in which I'll make mention of that later on. Their sales details, they had 300 events last year, and it's very seasonal. Up in Alaska, their open season is June through August. They've got 3 months, so they got 300 events in 3 months, basically about 100 events a month, and they vary by size and type by birthday parties, weddings, corporate events, trade expos, etc. And then their retail store did about 2,500 retail customers last year. Employee details, they've got 4 full-time and 8 part-time employees year-round. They've got 18 full-time employees during the summer, and their key employees right now are the owner, who's general manager. They've got an operations manager who's taking on more of the GM duties. The current owner is trying to back away and do less in the business and hand off responsibilities to his operations manager. They've also got an event prep and delivery team lead, so he organizes and prepares the teams for going to these events, setting up and taking down. And then they've got a customer service and marketing manager. Strengths and weaknesses. One of their key strengths is reputation. They do very little marketing. It's word of mouth. People ask, hey, if I need this equipment, who do I go to? And they are, I think there's about 4 to 5 other people that do this type of business in the area, but they are the go-to people. They've got a lot of industry connections with like event planners, venues, et cetera, et cetera. The variety and amount of rental equipment, they've got the biggest stock in place, and that's why they get so much business, is because if somebody needs something, that they are more than likely to have it. They also have this supporting equipment, like those giant tents that you see. They have this, huge industrial tent washer that washes it. They have own laundry facilities and a fleet of trucks. Weaknesses I'm seeing on the business is recruiting and retaining part-time and seasonal staff. It's challenging for them to do that each year. Right now, the company operations are reliant on 3 key employees besides the owner, and also the location. They're about 45 minutes outside of Anchorage, which is the main city up there, and they're outside of that, so there's lots of driving involved. Also, I'm in Utah, and the business is in Alaska, so that could make things interesting if I were to pursue this and then transition to ownership on this business. Opportunity and threat. I see an opportunity to acquire a complementary company, maybe event planning, audio, video, equipment rental. They don't do that now, but I'm just kind of thinking that rather than trying to grow by customers, maybe grow by adding complementary businesses to it. The threat, the market is basically theirs to lose. So maybe a competitor can make some inroads on the business, but this would require a lot of capital spending on a competitor to get the amount of equipment and inventory that this current company has. Before I turn to financials, what am I looking for help with? I'm looking to connect with somebody who has industry experience to help me. You'll look for red flags when it comes to due diligence, and kind of know the unknown unknowns that I do not know, and maybe also ideas for complementary roll-ups. And then also maybe somebody who has experience dealing with cultural issues, company culture issues. This is a company where the current owner has really strong relationships with his employees. And so I can see some issues on, an owner that's there has connections with employees, and then transitioning to somebody who is, far away, a semi-absentee owner, and there could be some issues with that. But that's the overview of the business. Maybe before I turn to financials and the one sheet, I do have a summary sheet here. Are there any questions about the business? Anything that I can clarify before we move to numbers?
No, not from me. I think you've nailed it. I think I like the business. I think there's some issues that you're going to need to overcome, and you've nailed them. So that impresses me heavily that you know what the issues are. You definitely need somebody that knows this industry. This is a very, very cutthroat industry, from my knowledge. So, but yeah, I like the business a lot. Yeah, keep going.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll just jump to the one sheet here. So here are the numbers for the last 3 years. I want to point out the issues right now because I know they're going to be brought up. Actually, one of them is the ad backs. There are a lot of ad backs, and that's something I'm going to have to spend a lot of time looking into. But if I look at my financials input page, something I noticed is that their COGS went down a lot and their overhead went up a lot. And I think it's just a miscategorization, and that's something I have to follow up on. But I think basically that's it. But if we just look at the one sheet here, we've seen good, strong growth, especially since COVID. I think they've, if these adjusted EBITDA numbers are right, I think they've got some strong numbers here. And
those margins are incredible if they're real.
Yeah, that's something I definitely have to do a deeper dive on.
That's the beauty of a rental business, right? Rental business, your margins and your return on capitals, they are high. That's why those businesses are so good. So like construction equipment, scaffolding, like event equipment, like this stuff's not that expensive to buy, and you're charging a fortune for it on a temporary basis. Then you're just recycling it. So yeah, I would expect the margins to be pretty decent, but you definitely need to vet those ad backs for sure.
Yeah.
But if they're real, let's assume they are. Yeah, those margins are solid.
Yeah, and if we look at a 5-year view, we see 2019, $1.1 million. You have a dip in COVID, but just kind of steady growth since COVID.
Yeah. Why is the owner selling the business?
He has another business that he hasn't really put much time into, and so he wants to take some of the capital from this business and capital and time to invest into his other business. I think he's late 40s, early 50s, and I think he's been in over 20 years and wants to do something different with his life. So those are the two main things. But again,
and he's selling you the real estate has to come with the deal, correct?
You know what? We talked about that last week, and he's open to retaining the real estate and selling just the business.
Okay. Well, if you go SBA on this, we'll look at the deal structures in a minute and the seller psychology. But if you're going to have to go down the SBA route, you might want to check out a 504. Although after what Jeremy and I have just been through the SBA, I don't ever go near those guys again. They're a fucking nightmare. Anyway, but we had a very complex deal. So
we did talk about that, and my understanding is that it's better to buy the business first, rent, and then lease, and then use the 504 a little bit later on, because you don't have to come up with that larger down payment.
That's a really good idea, actually, because the SBA, they have a phrase for that. It's called a rent replacement deal, right? So if you're renting a building and you want to buy the building to save on the rent, you don't have to put any equity into that purchase of the real estate if you do it later. So you're absolutely spot on. And apologies, I'm lisping, guys. I had major dental surgery on Tuesday before I came out to the States yesterday. So my mouth's still like swollen and stuff.
So that's the business. That's the numbers. Anything else that you want to look at?
Just go. Talk me through the seller psychology.
Sure. So I think he's really keen on the brand and the name continuing. He cares a lot about his employees. I think there's a good value alignment between the two of us, and we've had 2 calls over the phone, and we've hit it off really well. It's been really good conversation with him. I'm concerned about the motivation. One question I asked him is like, well, why don't you just uh, move, spend more time on your business and collecting, become more semi-absentee and then work on your other business. And he said, yeah, that could be a thing. I'm still trying to figure out exactly why he wants to sell it because he's not desperate to sell it. He's not the guy with the gun and the bottle of whiskey that you've talked about. So there's no sense of urgency there or distress. So it's kind of low on the mud, but he does care about finding the right person and he cares a lot about the legacy and what happens with employees afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So are you thinking SBA for this loan structure? It's worth a two offer. This is definitely worth a two offer strategy, in my opinion. What's the asking price?
So it was 3.2 with the real estate. I
So
think
we're
it's
on
worth
the
about 1.6, 1.7, the business alone. And I think he'd be open to that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think so. It might be worth a two offer structure. 1.6, maybe a little bit less on an SBA, or maybe something in the low twos on a 10-year annuity. Like if it's really doing 600,000 a year of adjusted EBITDA, you could go to $3 million on a 10-year annuity and still have a 2x debt service cover ratio. So if he's interested in the income over an extended period of time and you give him the right security on the business, he might go for it. So I would definitely do a two offer structure on this for sure. But yeah, let's open it up to everybody else. I'm going to go to Jeremy, then Mark, then Darren. So Jeremy, what do you think? I like it. No, he might be on a call. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, so I like the deal. A couple of things that are just twigging in my mind, and great job of presenting this. May I ask you to give me a bit of colour on the ag backs and take backs that bump up the adjusted EBITDA? And I'm asking this because if it's not justifiable, it reduces the level of EBITDA, which is obviously before net profit, and that's going to impact on the purchase of the business with the property on your ability with future profits to repay them. So that's number one. My number two is, given that you're in one part of the country and this is in another, it looks like rough and tough. You could have enough money from an EBITDA perspective to go and hire the very best competitive general manager to be the day-to-day new lead if it's the right kind of person, etc., so that you don't have to work in the business. So I like it because of that, but I kind of not sure that I like the property being included in the deal. And I kind of like options on properties to start with, because I assume you need the office location to trade from. So definitely renting it with an option to buy it for sure would be something that would sit well in my mind. So those are three things that just crossed my mind as you were talking about this. Do they make any sense?
Yeah, definitely. I'll address them. So I've got the ad back here. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah.
The big part of it is his salary, his owner salary. Okay. Then he's got his pension, his kind of IRA, retirement contributions. This big one here, it's kind of a whole bunch of different things. It's meal, entertainment, miscellaneous. He does, phones, charitable donations, sponsorships,
holidays,
insurance. So this is something I definitely know I need to do a deeper dive, and especially 2023. It's a lot bigger than previous years, and so they basically just threw a whole bunch of things into the pot, and now it's up to me to go and kind of look at those things and say, well, this is legit when this one isn't legit. That's
so on
that's
that figure. Make sure there's no business trips and holidays that have been put through there, because that hurts his valuation, and that's going to hurt him in the way he declares it if the company gets sold. So that would be a decent talking point if that turned out to be the case.
Perfect.
I like the fact that officers and salaries and insurance and pensions is attributed to him. Is that what you're saying on those two figures?
That's my belief, yes. That's my understanding from talking to him and the broker.
So that's great, because that gives you the money at the right time to pay the new GM, should you decide to go down that strategy of having it managed while you buy other companies to go along with it. So that's a wash if that's the case. So I like that. Your meals and entertainment, there's going to be bullshit in there that shouldn't be going through for sure. You just got to find out what it is and see if you can work with that. So that's really cool. Sorry, I interrupted you because I was excited by those numbers. What else were you trying to say before I got excited?
Well, I was going to talk about your second point there is that its location. And my plan actually for the first couple of years, because it is seasonal, is to actually go up there. I actually have a connection to the area. My oldest son just recently moved up to Anchorage with the Air Force up there.
Yeah.
So I'm very open to going up there and being there June, July, and August, then coming up periodically through the year, but then scaling back over the years. So
Yeah.
I have no problem going up there, learning the business. And then the second part is that he does have a manager that he's trying to groom and take his place.
Right.
And so I'd have to come up there and get to meet the guy. But I think there's an expectation there is that once the owner leaves, that this number two will kind of step up and take his place.
Yeah. So providing you're happy with, I always worry about, are you going to buy a job and do you want to buy a job?
Yeah.
And if you do want to do that, then fabulous.
Well, first, I want to be able to understand the business and know the business. I'm also looking at businesses that if a key player leaves, I'm able to step in and kind of take control until we've got a replacement. So
okay.
I'm very open to kind of being
okay.
a semi-absentee owner on a business like this.
Yeah. Okay. And then what about the property? Do you feel that, is that where it ties into your 504 and an SBA, where you basically lease it from him for a period of time, but have a separate option agreement to purchase it at a price you agree, pay a little bit extra by way of a deposit towards that? Are you familiar with that kind of thing?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of research on that, and I'm open to it. I'd rather lease at the beginning and then, as you said, buy it with the SBA later on if I decide to buy it. I don't want to do it up front because the down payment requirement would be too great.
Okay. Sweet.
Right. Let's go to Darren Yee, and then we'll take some questions. Darren,
yeah. Jason, I do like this deal. I mean, the margins look fantastic on it if they're true, right? And it looks, based on your ad backs and stuff, they look pretty solid in that side. So I think there's definitely great opportunity. We've talked a little bit about, you're living in Utah and then, they're in Alaska kind of a situation. I think as you're evaluating if you're going to have like an operator in there, with the company culture, maybe an implementation of some variation of the EOS platform, right? So you can kind of keep that company culture rolling. Some other bolt-on type businesses, like I'm thinking, for the trying to keep employees engaged, right? Maybe add some form of a catering type business. They're already there, not that I'm a big food service kind of guy, but it might encourage them to tips, things like that. It's adding the full service, to your team. They're already there, kind of a setup. So,
yeah.
But I think on the real estate, I'd explore a lease option, right? I think that's a great opportunity for you. And, those lease options, you might have to pay a little bit on the option piece, but it gives you that variety to come in and say, hey, I get first right refusal on it. If I want to take it down in 3, 4, 5 years, right? And I think the last piece of this is really like, what are the long-term goals of this company for yourself, right? Like, do you want to hold this thing for 3, 4, 5 years and then sell it off? Or do you want to hold this until you retire and pass it on to another family member? I think there's I might have a product for you if you decide like, hey, my goal is just to grow it 3, 5 years, sell it back off, kind of situation, right? That doesn't necessarily have to go through the SBA. So, but yeah, so something you can kind of think about for sure.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to questions. Kay Stoner. You're on mute, my love.
Okay, now, okay. I have questions. So in terms of the business itself, so I have hauled more equipment in my day than I care to say. How's their equipment, like all the stuff that they're renting out? What kind of shape is it in? I saw a depreciation number. Is it recent? Does it have to be replaced? What's the status on that?
Yeah, that's a concern that I have. I've not been on site, have not taken a look at it. So I can't answer that question. I am concerned about the depreciation, whether I'm buying a business that he's been able to take advantage of depreciation on his tax returns, and whether I'm going to buy a business where he's basically tapped it out and I'm not going to have that benefit. So that's something I need to do a deeper dive on. But I appreciate the question on that.
And then also in terms of the real estate, if you end up having to increase or decrease your inventory, having real estate, I mean, I've had to deal with like storage issues a lot with my events businesses. So, you know, do you have room to grow? Are you renting more? Do you have more space than you actually need? You know, what kind of space is it? Is it climate controlled? You know, and basically, is there easy in and easy out? Who's picking it up? Do they have a fleet of trucks? Is it the people who are renting it who are picking it up, or do they deliver? How does that all flow? Because that's
So I
going to
can,
be huge, especially if you have difficulties bringing in people seasonally.
yeah, I can answer the last question. They do have a fleet of trucks. They have 7 of those big box cube vans. And
Mhm.
so if it's a very large event, that's their job, is deliver, set up, and then once the event's over, come and take down. Some
Okay.
smaller things, like if it's a birthday party that they want a bounce house, if the people renting have the ability to take it, they take it. But again, they do have the fleet of trucks to deliver everything.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good luck.
Well, thank you.
Okay, great. Let's go. Let me come back to Zoom. I'm just checking my messages there.
I've got another question.
Yeah, let's go to David Draw, and then we'll go to Altaf. David?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So I like rental businesses a lot. My concern with this one is because of the location. It is super seasonal. And so looking at this, you know, if we're looking at the year-end snapshot on the balance sheet, I think it's undercapitalized, because you've got to carry those 4 full-time employees and the overhead of the business and the overhead of the property for, you know, a good 4 or 5 months before you start having income coming back in again in any substantial level. So that would be one concern, is you in your deal structure, you're going to need to beef up the capital on the business, and you're going to need to look at those ebbs and flows of working capital over the course of the year because of the seasonality. That level of seasonality is going to make it really, really hard to do, I think, as an SBA loan. You can get an SBA structure where maybe you have interest only payments during the off season and P&I payments during the busy time of the year. But otherwise, the bank is going to get really concerned that you make all the money in 4 months or 5 months, and then are you going to leave that cash in the business? How can they tie you to leaving that cash in the business so that you can carry the business through the off season? That being said, on the flip side, I love an SBA loan for this deal because real estate value is right on the cusp of being 50% of this deal. So if we can structure this purchase where we put a little more value on the real estate and a little less value on the business, we can get to that 51% real estate value, and we can amortize the entire purchase price over 25 years. That makes any deal doable with this business if you can get the SBA. The other thing the SBA is going to struggle with are those add backs. The salary, not, you know, fine. The pension stuff, fine. Those really big add backs on travel and entertainment, those really big add backs on personal auto, things like that. You're gonna have to make sure those are really, really well documented for the SBA to accept those. But again, if you can get to that 25-year amortization, you're going to be so over the top on debt service coverage that it's not going to be a big deal. So that's my read on it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that. Let's go to Altaf. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I had a couple questions. First of all, I think that this is it looks, how you presented it was, first of all, a great presentation. The business looks pretty promising as far as, the margins and the type of business positioning, it seems to have a corner on the market there. So I guess my concerns are a few, and I'm looking over here because I wrote some notes, so excuse me. So I guess you are going to be a little bit far from Utah to Alaska. Have you, and you said that you don't mind being, part-time business owner and that type of thing. But do you have a plan on how often you're visiting and when? Are you planning on spending those 3 months, traveling more, that kind of thing? Have you thought of that level of logistics?
Definitely. Yeah, my plan is if I were to go ahead with this business is to spend the summer, June through August this year, probably June through August next year, and then start weaning back after that. I'd probably also visit, you know, every 4 to 6 weeks during the slow season just to check in and see how things are going. Also, maybe like a weekly Zoom call with the manager. But yeah, I've definitely thought that through. Again, I think I did mention that my oldest son is up there, so I had no problem going up and spending the summer up in Alaska and doing stuff in Alaska and hanging out with him as well.
Great. And what percentage of the business occurs during those 3 months?
Um, that's something I've not got back yet. I just know for the
Sure.
event side of things, which is their moneymaker, it's basically, I'm guessing at least 80%, maybe 90%. They did mention
Sure.
that they're, January and February are usually slow months for them, but they're saying that it's starting to pick up a little bit. Like this year is about 20% more than last year, whatever last year was. But my guessing right now until I get it verified is about 80% of their business of the event business is the summertime.
Okay. And then did you get a sense of why? You had mentioned one of the cons was kind of the location of the business itself, 45 minutes from Anchorage. But did you get a sense of why it's so far?
That's just where the business started off as. And as the business grew and developed a reputation, they became more kind of entrenched in that city. I think it'd be
Yeah.
very hard to relocate in an affordable manner. But just that's where it started, 25 plus years ago, and just kind of built over
Yeah.
time, developed a reputation, and word of mouth spread. And
Yeah.
that's where it's at. That's where the business is at. So
Yeah. Without knowing that level of detail, I mean, Anchorage, 45 minutes away, is the population center of Alaska, 280,000. The two next populous cities are Juneau, 30,000, and another one, Fairfield or something, 30,000. And each of those is like 6 hours and 20 hours away. So there's really no other, population center to do business. And I'm wondering, like that type of distance that you're already setting yourself up back, with all the costs of transportation, just that type of thing to think about. And if there is 20-30% of the business the rest of the year, then those, few employees that are full-time year round, I think obviously that's important to keep them like that. And I guess the main thing in my mind is going to be your relationship with that ops guy who's becoming the new GM. I mean, that's going to be key with a few employees that are key to the whole business. That culture and that relationship is going to be so important. And I'll leave it at that.
sure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for
Thank
that. All right, guys, get your votes in, then we can move on to deal number 2. So for the newbies on the call, a green light means you either like the deal, you want to pursue it. A red light means you want to drop it, like third period French. And then the size of the number is your conviction, right? So a green light 100, it's called the golden buzzer deal. It's like the best deal you've ever seen. A red light 100 is it's like a pet rental business. It's the worst deal that you've ever seen, right? So get your votes in. I'm a green light 60 on this. I like it. Subject to the ad backs. I'd love to do an annuity deal on this. I'd offer him $3 million on an annuity deal. He might take it. You've definitely got the cash flow, and then have an option to buy the real estate later down the line using the SBA rent replacement scheme, which will cost you no equity. So I love that deal.